morning, Stampers. Welcome to Technique Tuesday. Today's technique, we are going to do a Faux Mother of Pearl technique. If you have my technique ring, it is one of the ones in here, and it's got a couple samples and the instructions. If you're looking for the technique ring, it's on my blog under techniques and ideas. But we're going to do the Faux Mother of Pearl technique. So what you will need is some glossy cardstock, or you could even use, if you don't have glossy cardstock, you can use photo paper. You can do this technique on plain paper, like I've done here. It's pretty. It came out nice, but you're going to see the difference when you do it on a glossy cardstock. It's even more vibrant and shiny and things like that. So, glossy cardstock. Then what you're going to need is your shimmer paint. And this is Frost White shimmer paint. It comes in a little container. You can hear it has a little ball in it, so you can shake it up. I have seen this technique done with your Wink Stella. It's just not, I didn't do very well at it. So there's those out there that have done it with their Wink Stella. I couldn't get mine to turn out. So we're just going to use our shimmer paint. Now we are using Frost White, but there are other colors of shimmer paint that you could use, and the possibilities would be endless. So, but we're just going to use the white today. Then you need some assorted colors. Today I'm going to do one of them in the new terracotta tile and some mango melody. See how that turns out. And then I brought in some shades of blues. We're going to do one in blue, and then we'll create some cards with them. You can use them to create frames or anything like that. It's a really pretty, and you're going to see super simple technique. So you also need some saran wrap. This is my craft room saran wrap because I hate saran wrap in the kitchen. I have the worst luck with it. So we're going to take a piece of this off. And it's about the only time you use saran wrap that it's okay that it sticks to itself. I mean, if you've ever tried to put it on a bowl, I just don't have luck. So we're just going to crumple up a little piece. And we want several little ledges there. So don't crumple it too tight. And we have our glossy cardstock. So we're going to take our shimmer paint. And oops, all we're going to do is just put your saran wrap up against the top of it and just tip it. Put a little bit on there. See how you have just a little bit on there? Then we're just going to dab it randomly on our cardstock. And you'll see, because the saran wrap is crumpled, it kind of makes different designs. So you're not trying to cover it completely, you're just trying to add, you know, it kind of looks like a marble to me, like a marble tile. Or so we're going to do that. Go into your wetter spots and just pick some up. And as you see, just that little bit did the entire piece. And I'm going to do two of them so we can do two colors. So I'll set this one aside. Now you can use this just as it is. This would be, as you see, it's just really pretty. If you were going to use it just like this without color, just stamp your image or greeting and you're done. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to set that one aside to dry, and I want to do one more because I haven't used the terracotta and orange color, and I wanted to see how it turned out. So we're going to do it together. So I'll just dab on this one. My paper's getting a little tight, or my saran wrap's getting a little tight, so I'm just going to unravel it a little so I get better random blotches. You know, anything that's shiny is just pretty, so I just love this. And as you see, it's a very quick technique. So I think we have that one color. I'm going to dab just the lid of that a little. Okay. I'm going to close this up because I have a tendency to spill things that are open on my craft space. And I'm going to bring back the one that's dry. Make sure it's dry. If you're not sure it's dry, just lightly hit them with your heat tool. Real lightly, because you know how glossy cardstock, you don't want to overheat. It can bubble it. So we'll just dry these a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to bring in our inks. I really want to try these two combinations here. So we'll open up our Mango Melody. And I have dedicated sponges to all of my inks. So this one's my Mango Melody. And this is the new terracotta tile that's new in this year's catalog. I love this color. It's not really orange, it's not really red, but it's really pretty. So I want to start with my lighter color first. And when I'm sponging, I normally start off the paper. I mean, if you've got a really inked up ink pad, we're just going to go right over our, I think my Mango Melody needs to be re-inked. But we're just going to add some random color in there. Let's go to our terracotta now. This one I know is a brand new inked up pad, so I definitely want to start off the edge to see how. Oh, that goes really good with the Mango Melody. And we'll be able to wipe off the paint here in just a minute. So just sponge randomly. You could do this with just one solid color. You can do it with multiple colors. Like most of my techniques, just use experiment with different colors and things. I mean, most of the techniques I do are a lot of this kind of, you know, anything goes kind of stuff. And that's fun to do. Of course, I love to get full of ink. So we've added some color into that. I'm going to go over it one more time with the Mango Melody just to try to blend it a little. And now I'm going to bring in just a lightly dampened baby wipe or a paper towel. And I'm lightly going to go over the surface. See how it's pulling up the paint? It's just going to wipe it off of the top of the paint. Is all it does. It's going to leave your color on your photo stock. It's just removing the ink from the paint. And you'll see there's very little that comes off, but look at what it did. So let's go over that. Oops. And look at that. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so let's do one in blue, because I have two different card ideas bouncing around in my head right now, and we'll build them together and see if they turn out. So I think I want to bring in my Balmy Blue and Night of Navy. So let's get our sponges for that. I usually always start with my lighter colors. You don't necessarily have to. It's It's kind of your preference, but I always like starting with lighter in case, you know, it's easier to cover up something lighter than it is something darker. You could probably, if you like brayering, you could probably do this with brayering. I like the blues so far. This is going to be like it's be a nice sky one. Could stamp an image, one of your silhouette images right over it. And if you're going to stamp directly on it, ooh, Night of Navy is a little dark. So we're just going to add a little bit of that. Blend it around. See, I didn't start off of it, so it definitely left a little blotch there. But by the time we wipe this, I think it's going to turn out fine. Bring in my balmy blue, see if I can blend that out a little bit. There it goes. So do as I say, not as I do. Should have started off right there, but that's okay. I think this is going to turn out just fine. So I'm going to close these up real quick. We'll bring in our baby wipe. And it doesn't look like much now, but let's see what happens when we wipe off and expose the paint. Look at that. Oh, I like that. That's very pretty. There we go. See, that turned out really pretty too. See the difference with the glossy cardstock? See how it shimmers? And here is doing it on just plain Whisper White. It's shiny, but not as shiny. So this works. This is still nice. Do a nice frame with this. Cut out a frame, put a sentiment in the middle. Let's make something with these two and see what we come up with. Move everything aside here. Let's do something with our orange one first. I'm going to bring in the Big Shot and my stitched rectangles. Rectangle stitch dies. I absolutely live for those dies. So let's bring it in. And we have a white card base. I'm just going to use a white card base. So let's cut this down. Maybe the largest rectangle die kind of covers your whole card. So I'm going to go one below that. I'm going to go the next size smaller. And that way I have a white frame around. So let's cut this out. And since we're cutting this smaller, I'm going to go ahead and cut this where I can use what's left over as a frame. So instead of going all the way to the edge, I'm going to move my die down a little bit so that I can use the excess piece for another project. And let's go ahead and cut this out. I'm going to move that aside for a minute. I have a really small workspace here by my camera. I'm gently removing the outer. And see, we can use this as another framed piece. I would trim this off, and you could just stamp a greeting in there, lay it on your cardstock. But let's take this one. I love these stitched rectangles. They're so... I love anything stitched, but look how that added a nice little touch to that. And now let's take this, and we're going to bring back our Big Shot. And I'm going to use from the Flourishing Phrases this Flourish. And all I'm going to do is take a piece of white scrap and put our Flourish here. You kind of, I mean, I'm the type of person, if I've got a technique like that, I don't want to make my card too busy and take away from the technique. So we're just going to take a simple Flourish here. Move this aside. I should have brought, I have a die brush and I didn't bring it over. So you can just take your tweezers and kind of poke one of the holes in your dial, pop out. Again, do as I say, not as I do, because it's sure not popping out of there, is it? There it is. I can get a hold of it. Okay, let's try that again. If you have a die brush, sometimes these intricate dies are easier if you use your die brush. There we go. There we go. Now we're cooking. Poke out the little pieces that stayed in there. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're simply just going to lay this directly on there. So what I use when I have a die cut that I haven't used my adhesive sheets is I have a sponge that is dedicated to glue, and I keep it in an old embellishment container. And by closing it up when you're done, it keeps it from hardening. So I usually just take a little bit of glue, and I think my glue is... Boy, I'm just 0 for 0 here today. There we go. Got it going. And I put a little glue on my sponge. And then make sure you do the back side of it. And then just lightly tap your Flourish or whatever you're gluing down. So we're going to glue it right on there. Pretty. Now we're going to take, let's do birthday. So I'm just going to bring in the itty bitty birthdays. We're going to pull out, let's do birthday wishes. Bring in our, I do everything with my Stamparatus. When I first started stamping, I could not stamp an image straight to save myself. So now, Stamparatus has saved me. And I want to do it in the colors of my unit, so I'm just going to pull in the terracotta tile. Ink that up. That came out pretty. Grab my baby wipe, just wipe that off. Show you another trick I do when I'm making little banners for my greetings. So I bring in the cutter, cut the width I want. This one is about, I'm going to say it's going to be about 5/8 inch wide. Let's see how wide that is. Let's go a little. Let's do 1/4 inch. And then when I want to make a little flag banner at the end of it, I take a pencil and I figure out about the middle here. And I just put a tiny little dot right there in the middle so it's even in the center. And then I bring in my 1-inch square or any square punch. Put your banner into your punch. And you're going to see that little hole there, that little dot you made. Line it up in the corner of the square there. And there you go. You've done your flag. A lot of people are better at cutting it with scissors. Me, not so much. So let's bring in some dimensionals. I'm going to pop up our greeting. Let's put our greeting about right there. Then if we want, we have these elements, these metal elements. I will have links to them in my description here. I want to add let's go with the copper. I think they have copper, silver, and gold. And I'm just going to put one right here. And I'm not going to add much anymore to this because I want the technique to stand out. So I'm going to bring in a card base and I have it set to top fold. And let's pop it up. You could, if you have foam strips, you can use foam strips when you do big pieces like this, or you can just use your dimensionals. I use a little bit of both because I pop up a lot of stuff. I guess there's probably another terminology for pop-up. I guess that's just what I've always called it. And then I'm just going to center it right on our piece here. And there you go. How quick, simple, and elegant is that? You could add a couple pearl embellishments if you wanted to, but the pearl through the paper shows up even better. So let's do something with this blue piece we made. Let's do something a little different. Let's see what we can think of to do. I didn't pre-plan this video. Normally I pre-plan my videos, but here we are. Let's take this, clean this up. I think what I want to do is I'm going to cut some squares out of this. Oh, I don't know if you've seen, you know, a lot of our people are on a Greece cruise to Greece. It's a trip that, as demonstrators, they have incentive trips every year. Well, they sneak peeked them a picture of what the new trimmer's going to be. I can't wait. So hopefully they'll be releasing that sometime around when they release the holiday catalog. I'll keep you posted on my blog. So let's do, we figure we're 4 1/4. Let's do 1.5 inch squares here. 1 3/4. Let's see what that looks like. So we'll do 1 3/4. Let's see if this one's the right size. 1 3/4. So we're just doing some squares. Let's do 1 3/4. By 1 3/4. We'll save this piece for another piece. Like I said, you can stamp right on it, make an image. I'm trying something new here. We're going to see how this turns out. We'll bring in our card base. We're going to create a design out of these squares here. What do you think? Should we do the 4 squares and do a flourish on there? I think we could, and I think it'll be pretty. Who knows? You know. So let's go ahead and pop those up with dimensionals on there. I probably shouldn't wing these videos, should I? I should pre-plan all this, but, you know, this is how I create, and you just kind of go with whatever you're thinking or feeling at the moment. If you put too much thought into it, it makes this hobby a little difficult. I used to, but I love playing with making different designs and things like that. So I'm going to lay this one just so I can get a visual. And I'm going to pull it, bring it up a little, because we'll put a greeting down below. So let's put that first one there. And then you can square them off from that one. Let's give it a little space. Give it about the same space and bring one down. There we go. Now, what flourish and what greeting do we want to use? Well, let's bring in, let's see, we've got the Words Well Written. This is another set I use a lot. I love anything that's die cut words. But there's a tiny little flourish in here and a butterfly. So or a bird. Let's do the bird. And I'm simply going to cut those out in white. Let me run these through the Big Shot. And we're going to see how this looks. So we die cut our images. And that's a cute little bird. A tiny little bird. And then we just got this little flower flourish. Pop it out of here. Oh, almost tore it. So we got this tiny little flourish. You could probably add 2 to this if you wanted to, but and you may need to. That's a little small, isn't it? Could do it in the middle. Or we could, let's die cut another one of the flourish that we did, the big flourish. Let's die cut one of those. See if that one's a little bit, we can trim it down. I was going to carry my Big Shot over, but it's just as fast to do this. I'm running it through the Big Shot. So let's take this die cut again. pop it out of here. If you have a die brush, they're a lifesaver. I usually keep it over. I have a little station where I keep my Big Shot, do most of my Big Shot work, and that's where my die brush sits. You could do this in any color, but I really didn't want to take away from our color of our technique. So we're just poke out these little pieces that didn't poke out. Sometimes that gets a little tedious, doesn't it? Yeah, that one looks a little bit better because it kind of just covers our 4 squares. So let's do that one. I like that one better. You could do any die cut you want on there. If you have some nice flowers or stamped image maybe. Let's do our little glue thing here. Let's set it up. I'm going to have this little end stand off just a little bit, just for effect. Tap that down. And last but not least, let's bring our Stamparatus back in. And we can use the same grading. It'll work. So let me hold this down. And let's just put our grading right here off to the right side. Make sure my magnets are on here. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do it in the Night and Navy to pull in the dark there. There you go. You just made 2 very simple cards with a very elegant technique. See? There you go. I hope you liked today's technique, and happy stamping. Bye-bye.